T-SQL isn't the only language you can use to back up your SQL Server databases. Let's take some backups using PowerShell and the DBA Tools module. Welcome to this video on backing up SQL Server. My name is Kevin Fiesel. I'm the proprietor of Catalxy Services LLC, a consulting firm which specializes in work all across the data platform space, especially SQL Server. Last time around, we saw how to perform database backups using T-SQL. You can, of course, perform all backup and restoration tasks using T-SQL alone, but T-SQL is not the only language that you can use to back up and restore databases in SQL Server. PowerShell is another such language, especially when you take advantage of the DBA Tools PowerShell module. Let's go to the classroom and see what DBA Tools is before we try it out in the demo. The DBA Tools module is available at dbatools.io and is one of the best open source projects out there related to SQL Server. There are hundreds of commands built into this module, covering dozens of activities that database administrators need to do. Everything from migrating a SQL Server instance to another machine, setting up log shipping or database snapshots, generating random data in test databases, managing logins and users, or even working with SQL agent jobs and availability groups. Today, we are going to focus on a few here in the backup and restore section. First, I do want to mention the backup and restore certificates section. In a prior video, I showed you how to create a master key and certificate for the purposes of encryption, as well as how to back up that certificate to a file to preserve it, or to allow you to restore the encrypted database to another SQL Server instance. You can use these commandlets to perform the same sort of work, which can be helpful for automating the task. I won't show how to do that in this series, though it is pretty easy to put together a script to do it. Instead, let's check out the backup and restore database section. We have 18 separate commandlets, though for today's purposes, we're only going to focus on a couple of these. The first is backup DBA database, which is how we'll back up databases, not surprisingly. I will also show you how you can get the last backup for a database and do some basic backup testing. With all of that said, let's do a little less tell and a little bit more show and get you right to the demo. I am in the Windows terminal, specifically a PowerShell terminal. I'm going to load the DBA Tools module now. Because I already have it installed, I can simply import the module. In the event that you don't have it already, you can run install module DBA Tools first. Note that you will likely need to run PowerShell as an administrator in order to install DBA Tools. You'll also need to set your execution policy to remote signed in order to use this module. Again, this will require administrative privileges, so I'm not going to run it here. Instead, let's learn a little bit more about the backup DBA database command. To do so, I have a couple of options. First, I can use git help. Git help is a built-in PowerShell commandlet, and DBA Tools plays nice with it, including significant documentation for each command. We can see here a quick note on what the command does, followed by a syntax section that includes several examples of how you can call this function. Then we see a description and a remarks section that includes additional commands to see examples of how to call it, more detailed information, and more. The other method we can use to get more information is to review the DBA Tools documentation. This is just an online version of the same documentation that we can get with the terminal, though it may be a little bit easier to read in this format. If I scroll down just a little bit, we can see examples of how to use this commandlet. The first one is already fairly illustrative. We can specify a SQL Server instance and then one or more databases using comma-separated values. The second example shows how we can take a full backup of the AdventureWorks 2014 database on SQL Server instance SQL 2016, and then write the results to a temporary directory on the C drive. And there are plenty of other examples of what we can do. But instead of spending the entire video reviewing examples in documentation, let's take some backups of our own. Before I go too far, I am going to show you a quick command that you may need to run, or else you'll get a warning that the certificate chain was issued by an authority that is not trusted. We are setting a DBA Tools configuration setting implicitly to trust the SQL Server certificate. I need to do this because I'm using a self-signed certificate that comes with SQL Server installation, rather than using a certificate with the blessing of some certificate authority. This is a local installation of SQL Server on a personal computer, so I don't really mind doing this. I have a database called SQL Simulator Demo 1, and I'm going to take a full backup of it to the default location, which for me is d://SQL/backups. Once the backup completes, we are going to switch over to Windows Explorer. In here, we can see that the SQL Simulator Demo 1 backup is in this folder. One nice thing about DBA Tools is that if you do not specify a file name, it automatically appends a timestamp to the backup. This means that if you want to use this command as part of an automated backup system, you don't need to figure out unique names every time. Now, I will make a note that this database is in the full recovery model, so let's see how we can perform differential and log backups. Want to perform a differential backup? Well, that's easy. Swap the type to diff. Let's run that, and then we can see that it created a differential backup. And if I want to create a log backup, well, set the type to log and give it a run. In the prior video, we saw how to back up to null as a way of testing how quickly you could possibly back up a database. Let's do that here as well. I will also set the copy only flag so that we don't break the log chain. Now, because the database is so small, the duration is less than 1 second. But let's try it again with the Chicago parking tickets database. This one is a bit beefier, so I will need to vamp for a few seconds, but only a few. And as you can see, it's already done. And the duration column shows how many seconds this took. The information that we see here will be useful to know if you want to perform any sort of backup tuning, which will be the topic of a future video. In the meantime, let's check out a couple of other commands. First, I want to know the last backup for the SQL Simulator Demo database. Let's get that information using the get DBA Last Backup command. This is the simplest iteration of the command that I can use, specifying just the instance and database names, and it gives me back a list of attributes indicating my last, full, differential, and log backups. But I happen to have a second database, SQL Simulator Demo 2. Let's check it out. This is a database that I've never backed up, and so you can see that there is no value for the full, for the differential, or even for the log backup times. Now let's say that I want to know when I took the last full backup of each database. To do that, I can remove the database flag. Then I'll pipe the results to select object and include just 3 columns: database, last full backup, and time since last full backup. We can see that I've never backed up several of these databases. Others I've last backed up a few years ago, and a few of them have more recent backup times, in part because of this series. If this is what your company's servers look like, you are going to want to set up some automated backup routines. Now, the next thing that I want to do is test some backups. The test DBA Last Backup commandlet will automatically grab the last full backup that you took and make sure that it's restorable. We can see that the restore result is a success and dbcc result is a success. Now let's check out what the command is actually doing, which you might think maybe we do that before we run the demo, but that's us. So this command restores the database backup to the initial SQL Server instance because I did not set a destination instance. After restoration completes, it runs dbcc checkdb to ensure that the database does not have any corruption. After that, it drops the test database so that you don't need to deal with it anymore. That's a lot of stuff going on in one small command, making sure that the backup that you've taken is a good one. And it also looks like a good point for us to stop for today. That was taking backups via DBA Tools. There is, as you could imagine, quite a bit more that you can do with DBA Tools. As an example, we might have a job that looks for any databases without a full backup in the past week and automatically kicks one off. In the next video, we are going to take some of these backups and show you how you can restore them using SQL Server Management Studio, T-SQL, and DBA Tools. We'll have links and show notes in the description below, and until we see each other in the next video, take care.